Good afternoon. A very warm welcome to all the participants who have joined us for this live webinar today. As you all know, the topic for this webinar is Discover a Gear Shift in Supply Chain and How a Diverse and Inclusive Culture is Helping Companies Win. This obviously is part of a virtual career fair for women in STEM fields. Uh, I'm sure all of you would also know that this live webinar is a sort of a master class which is being conducted by Johnson and Johnson. And so at this juncture, let me begin by introducing myself and my fellow colleagues for this webinar. My name is Shipra Saraf. I am part of the HR team here at Johnson and Johnson, and I head HR for three highly specialized functions here: supply chain, R&D, and data sciences. And so, of course, no better platform for me to be part of than when we talk about careers for women in STEM fields. I have with me today two very, very senior leaders from Johnson and Johnson. I'm very pleased to introduce Sumit Sinha. Sumit is a senior director with us. He is the head of end-to-end supply chain for the consumer health business in J&J India. Welcome, Sumit.
Thank you. Thank you, Shipra. Thank you,
And
Shipra.
along with Sumit, hi. And along with Sumit, we also have Sharmishtha Biswas. She is the plant head at one of the consumer health plants in J&J India, which is a liquid manufacturing. Welcome, Sharmishtha.
Thank you so much, Shipra. I'm so excited to be part of this forum. Welcome, everybody.
Hi, Sharmishtha.
Likewise. And as I said, we couldn't have a better panel today to talk about the topic, which is about discovering a gear shift supply chain. At the same time, to talk about diversity and inclusion. So why don't I begin with you, Sumit, first? You head the supply chain for one of the largest businesses in J&J India, consumer health. So what, according to you, are, some of these gear shifts that are happening? What are these truly transformative stuff that's happening in supply chain world? And maybe then you can also touch upon supply chain, not just in general, but healthcare supply chain.
For sure. And thanks, Shipra, for asking that. Being in supply chain, I think this topic is so close to our heart, and it made us realize a lot of new things. And I will quote Benjamin Franklin, who said that out of adversity comes opportunity. And COVID really brought many of these things to organization. And if I talk in particular to supply chain, it's where the whole process of rethink, reinvent, and restart has started. And I'm talking not only Johnson and Johnson. When I talk to my peer, it's the same thing everywhere. Now, what do I mean by rethink, reinvent, and restart? Is the whole customer strategies and things which we used to talk about customer centricity has changed, because all of a sudden in last 7 months, the whole pattern of how consumers go interact with companies, how they shop, how they want the services completely changed overnight. Like you and me really didn't go to any shopping malls for many months. And even today, I will say stay with caution. But we had our needs which were still required to be met. And that is where the supply chain started feeling initially the pressure. Now they see that as an opportunity of how you can really make sure that your changes are well suited to the new changing consumer needs and the customer needs. The other one was also reinventing. And I think this was also when we in supply chain were always very proud of how over decades we have built a very robust supply chain. Many of our supply partners, ecosystems, etc. When we used to talk, it was pretty proud feeling. But what we have suddenly realized that all those links were very weak, because suddenly during COVID, lanes got disrupted, supplies got disrupted. There were different countries at different stage of this whole pandemic, and hence it was not becoming obvious for us to say what will work, because it is supply chain, right? The chain gets broken and then you are suddenly down to zero. And that was a big shift where even all companies put in a lot of efforts to start reinventing as how robust is their supply chain. And that I will say is also transformational opportunities for companies to say, what you can create for future is where this thing works in any, God forbid, any pandemic hits us, this should work. So that whole resilience and robustness of supply chain is important. And then if I pick up the same theme of saying discovery process, right? We had a lot of case studies, examples of the past, but no one had case studies and examples of this kind of disruption. No one ever saw that it was just not one part of the organization, but almost everyone was getting impacted almost the same time. Now, this was a good process where all of us are also realizing that it's a great way of discovering new things. It's all about your innovation, and everyone says out of adversity you also generate more innovations. And what we have seen is not only how companies brought products in a very fast and super fast way. We were very lucky to have technology and science of our people who could bring sanitizers in many markets within 3 weeks to 4 weeks. We have seen companies who are making automotives suddenly started to help us deliver ventilators for hospitals. There were companies who were doing cloth for fashion industry, suddenly realized a need for mask, and they were able to turn around very fast. Now, all these things, if you talk about in a very common and in a good days, they used to take months, they used to take years for us to even come to that level. And what we have seen in these times, that whole discovery process has become much faster, and it gave a lot of things for us to play with. So that continues to be pretty strong. And I think the other transformational thing, which for sure is a journey, is around the people strategy. That all of a sudden, while all that digital things were available, but as I said, it was not technology only at your rescue. It was your own people who came to come with alternates, come with solutions, come with a way to work together while not being together. So I will just put these 3-4 things. If I look at how is supply chain disrupted and what are transformational things which we see in these areas under customer needs, how do we make it more robust as a supply chain, the discovery or innovation process, as well as our talent strategy and people strategy.
Thanks for sharing your insights, Sumit. And I think yes, my key takeaway from your answer has been that what doesn't change is the customer at the center, and what also doesn't change is people first. But we'll come to that a little later. People first. I actually want to pass the buck now to you, Sharmishtha. You in all these times have been at the helm of actually leading a plant, leading operations for a liquid manufacturing plant. How has the journey been for you over the last 1 year?
So, Shipra, let me start by saying that I think at this juncture, it's first time in modern history that supply, demand, and manpower availability has been affected all at the same time. So, like Sumit said, that pandemic and these crises can be seen as two-phased actually. One, it pushes us to rethink, reimagine, reshape, and it also gives therefore a very good opportunity to reinvent some of our strategies. So I think from the dealing of a crisis, or how do you manage a crisis, lead it, and then of course come out as a winner, it requires a combination of some foundational strategies and some immediate actions. So foundational strategy, I think at J&J we are very well placed with our mission and vision of changing the trajectory of health for humanity. I think this actually sat so well and put us very well placed, especially during this pandemic, which brought forth uh, a I think I would say a rallying cry, not just for organizations, for people everywhere, that health is a priority. And I think that helped us steer through a lot of challenges that otherwise organizations and industries across have faced. Manufacturing is all about people, Shipra. Manufacturing is, I think, less to do with equipments, as is the perception, and more about people. And this pandemic and this disruption, we were able to deal with keeping our employees' health and safety at the center. Whether it was about social distancing, whether it was about comorbidities, all those processes and policies in place, we were able to meet a lot of demand changes. I think from a market driven or a customer centricity, as Sumit mentioned, there has been a lot of disruption during this pandemic for all of us. The essential goods manufacturing, and I am the manufacturing leader for essential goods category of products in J&J as well. We saw a surge in the demand, maybe driven by panic buying in certain markets or otherwise. And in certain part of the portfolios, we saw a sudden drop. All of this was we were able to manage because our processes are so strong held with people at the center, whether it was simplification in our operating processes, line modifications to ensure that we have social distancing, because that was definitely, as I say, the cornerstone, the employee safety, and at the same time making sure that we continue to produce with a very high quality of products which our consumers deserve, and we continue to supply thus. So I think overall, this entire pandemic or the disruption has brought about, I think, across industries and especially within J&J, very resilient manufacturing. And this resilience in manufacturing is, I think, has a cornerstone of two things. One, our strong focus on processes, and second, a very strong focus on capability, which capability of people, the diverse capability of a people, which drove automation and digitization, which we call as democratization of data to the shop floor, because pandemic, Shipra, or these crises can only be dealt with where decision making is not just at the top, but it is at all levels, and that's how we become agile. So I think with automation and digitization and diverse abilities, we were able to come up as a winner, an absolute winner in supply chain across the industries.
No, thank you. I mean, I've said that earlier in our interactions, and I can't thank you enough for leading the battle in such difficult time. We know how difficult it can be to lead a manufacturing plant during this time. So thank you so much once again, Sharmishtha. And it makes me wonder because Sumit also spoke about it. You also spoke about the fact that how competitive this supply chain world is becoming, and we have to be truly at the cutting edge of certain things. Then only we can win in this market. So possibly, Sumit, back to you. This question, which is more about what is J&J doing to really win this space?
Sure. And once again, Shipra, I think always it was said, and it was not a cliche anymore to say companies won't win just because of having a great product. It is about how do you bring the whole customer experience, the whole service model in such a way, which is what is now very evident, that the supply chains and the way the whole organization rallies behind making it the best in class will also make sure that the companies remain more relevant, and they are outperforming others in that area. So when it comes to J&J, and I think we are blessed, as what even Sharmishtha touched upon, with a very clear and broad vision of saying we are a world biggest healthcare company, and we have great set of experiences, products, technologies, people working with us. It's more than 130,000 people working globally across all verticals of supply chains, across verticals of R&D. We have great strength in terms of how distribution happens, multiple of those things. And as was also acknowledged by Gartner, in case I can quote that with the Gartner's research and their survey of the top companies, we were very privileged to be second year in a row being acknowledged as world's best healthcare supply chains. It's second year in the row. And that speaks volume of what J&J has been doing over period of decades, 2 decades, 3 decades of making it better and better. I will say in this whole time where J&J and what we are seeing very clearly coming out across the hierarchy are 3 or 4 core things. I see a big change where J&J is making clear investments in accelerated technology adoption. Sharmishtha spoke about digitalization. It's part of it. But in a way, we do feel that technology will enable a lot of people for working more efficiently, for making sure that we are not in this global world when you have 130,000 people. How can I not leverage that power of something great happening in one part of the world coming across to India, going across from India to many parts of the globe? So all of that technology adoption is where the biggest investment, and J&J remains very committed to make sure that our people get the best possible technology when they come to work. And digital is one clear roadmap. I don't think in last 1 year I would have heard it any time less that any town hall, any of our discussion has ended without an emphasis on saying how do we need to really embrace the digital piece in it. And this is all about, it's not just in the labs where we were doing a lot of digital work. It is now back into the shop floor. It is where we are bringing technologies like 3D printing. I have a lab, the plant where I sit, we have a 3D printing lab. We are talking about Internet of Things working in our factories as well as our warehouses. It's it's where the whole world converges. Is also the customer piece, right? The whole e-commerce area. How are you connecting even during these time? Let me tell you that even the pharmacists and the doctors, which we were able to connect all through digital, because we can't let our people go out in the field when it is already disrupted, but there was still a need for us to address those healthcare needs. And that is where digital has been really helpful, and we are dialing that up pretty aggressively. The second, which I will say, is the whole gear shift on the value creation part. And in the cycle of all large organizations, when we see things happening for functional silos and then globalization and localizations, what we are really now saying, it is not around whether it is global or local, unless it is adding value, it is not required. So a lot of our functions are also pivoting towards how do we add value to the customers. And that's where it's not only just structure, it is also processes. It is also around the whole ecosystems which we develop with networks like India being a key market and lead market for certain things. China bringing a lot of information and knowledge about e-commerce to us. So it in a way, it is good that we are able to use different strength at different point of time. Then I will say the other piece, which is also very critical, is this is the best time to invest in capability. And we have never been shy of saying that. While we are a learning organization and it is 130-year-old, people quote it as a 130-year-old startup. Why so? Because we don't know everything. And that is where it is important that we build right capabilities for us to lead for another 100 years in serving the needs for human health and whatever we do today for our credo on patients, customers, consumers out there. So that's what I will say as where J&J is really pivoting on these 3 things: the technology, the value enhancement for customers, and the whole capability piece around all the stuff which I spoke about of bringing the best-in-class talent to the team, and how do we bring more capabilities to drive it for next 100 years.
Great. No, I think these are just great points that you touched upon, and you are right. I mean, I think the clarity of thought, right, from our global supply chain right down to the country level is extremely clear, and it is the same things that we do talk about, which is technology and capabilities. Uh, Honestly, I can go on and ask you more around the technology front because it's such an exciting space. But I'm mindful of the topic that we are discussing today, and hence I will touch upon the last point that you discussed. You said the people ecosystem, the investing in the right capabilities is really making J&J win today in this space, and it will continue to do. Right? I know you and I have also discussed this multiple times that the more diverse workforce that we have in the organization, we are truly going to be having a competitive edge. So why don't I throw this question back to you once again, Smith? Do you really feel that having a diverse workforce is creating a competitive edge for us in J&J supply chain?
Answer is yes, and we can conclude here. Answer is yes. It's a resounding yes. I mean, whichever way we will explain it, answer is yes for sure. But let me touch upon this whole topic of diversity. Now that we are also talking to the kind of group which is also a pretty diverse kind of talent, which we always look forward to. Now, 2 decades or more, at least the career which I have spanned so far, diversity has been a topic. And in all leading multinationals, in all leading organizations you talk about, I think it's very clear that diversity plays a very critical role. And in between, there were also initial hypotheses. And I was reading an HBR article recently where they said initially there was a thought to say, bring in diversity, your financial performance will improve dramatically. Has it happened? Or there is a direct correlation between the two? I guess there are still a lot of other things to explore. And what people are realizing, and that's important to talk about, the topic of diversity is not going to be standalone. It is only when you talk diversity and inclusion together, it is the right thing for organizations. Just diversity alone is not working. It's not working for many organizations. It's mathematical beyond a point of time to talk diversity, unless you are talking diversity and inclusion together. And let me quote another thing which comes to my mind, that it's like diversity is more, and I read it somewhere. Diversity is like being invited to a party. You are there and you are. But inclusion is when you are invited to dance, because that is where you engage, you enjoy. And if you can visualize, unless there is inclusion, and when you feel engaged, you feel being part of that family which has invited you to the dinner, it becomes very difficult to get the best out of them. So think about another, and this is a STEM kind of audience. So I will also say, scientifically, everyone would have read the laws of friction, right? What importance friction brings. You can have the best in class car, but if you put it on the road which has no friction, you know what will happen, right? There's no acceleration and only accidents will happen. I think diversity creates positive friction. It is about multiple different diverse background brings different thought process. They challenge the status quo. They have ways of looking at things differently. It's how do we talk millennials, how do we talk old, and how do we talk seasoned, how do we talk inexperienced, how do we talk just like any casual day at home as well. So diversity is very important because it brings that friction, because without that friction you are not going to develop ideas. But if you don't have inclusion, these ideas will also disperse, right? It's a free state. The gaseous form, if it is not contained, it will all go away. So what you need is inclusion to make sure that you harness the power of all these great ideas which people bring along. So talking to your question as, is diversity helpful and is this going to help organizations or supply chain? Answer is 100% yes. You need different people who come with different background, different thought process, different industry, and just help us shape it in a different way altogether. And I think I should not be speaking that long. We also have a live example as I look around, is Sharmishtha, who has been a living example for us as how the diversity and inclusion had been working here for us. So maybe I can request her to add on this particular point, Sharmishtha.
Thank you, Sumit. And let me start by sharing my journey. I think my journey in STEM and diversity and inclusion in the spotlight, I think, is uh, like something which is absolutely interspread in my journey in STEM last 14 years of having worked in different organizations, starting as an individual contributor, as a consultant, moving on to supply chain network designs, having lived across multiple geographies. I think one of the key things that I have learned is diversity and inclusion, exactly how you mentioned. Diversity is the first step. And inclusion is when you actually help the high performing individuals actually innovate and contribute to the business growth. So even in my previous organizations as logistics head or leading operational distribution, I was multiple times I found myself as the only woman at the table. But I think having now worked in Johnson and Johnson, I realized one thing which I pass on to people after me and my peers and the women in the STEM community, that it's not just about getting seat at the table. It is actually helping each other and also helping yourself find that voice to make smart and dynamic decisions that help the businesses grow. Inclusion is something that is not served to us, and where it is not, this is something that you claim and something that you grow in the environment so others can get benefited from. So at J&J, especially as a manufacturing leader, I think the first thing I would say is very few roles, I would say, and having worked in multiple roles in supply chain and in STEM myself, I can say very few roles actually give you the business dimension in the entirety as manufacturing does. Safety, quality, compliance, maintenance, engineering, all across all these elements of this role, it converges on people. So it really comes down to your own, and I think this is something that I also found in myself. The bias for action is absolutely critical, especially when you are a talent agent. And as a manufacturing leader, I see myself as a people leader, as a talent agent more so than anything. And if I have to leave a few pointers with the beautiful audience out here, I think there are a few things that we must, as women in STEM and role models for generations to come, we must do. And to start with is perception. There are widespread perception about, let's say, roles in manufacturing. So I have many a times come across talented women, forego opportunities in manufacturing because manufacturing is assumed and perceived as a very manual tasked role, which is not. Today, we are talking about digitization, automation, and it is really not about moving machines and doing a lot of non ergonomic or ill ergonomically designed equipments. At J&J, you would see this is just a myth. Manufacturing, again, is about people, and in this perception about role is also oftentimes coupled with perception of self. And women leadership specifically comes with a lot of perception about self, which thankfully I'm part of a generation where I have extremely high number of female role models breaking barriers and changing this perception. So I try and follow in those steps and do that for myself as well. And this is something we all women have to do every day. The second one is seek mentorship and recruit sponsorship. Sumit, I think one of the key things about my success as a manufacturing leader, especially in this disruptive world, is that I had significant amount of sponsorship where my sponsors challenged me at every step, at the same time championed my successes in the organization. And that in J&J is seen as a cornerstone of how we develop talent. And Shipra, I'm sure, will share more on that. But this entire coaching, mentoring, and sponsorship has helped me develop my leadership imperatives, helped me create more business impact, and at the same time, have me unapologetically focus on my own acceleration. And this is something that I pass on to my peers and other women in STEM. And finally, it comes to creating that safe environment and being an advocate. I time and again I said more women must join manufacturing, and this entire peer group of women in STEM. I think today J&J with groups like Wisdom 2D, and it stands for Women in Science, Technology, Engineering, Math, and Manufacturing. They're bringing a tectonic shift in the way women come together as a community, not just in supply chain, but in essential areas like R&D, data sciences, and all across all segments of supply chain. This group is actually spearheading women to come together, work not just towards accelerating and enhancing that mentorship for women within STEM in the organization, but also helping the women outside of the organization, whether it's youth in university or also professional women, such as our audience today, to pick manufacturing, pick STEM as their choice of career, and build this community where we support each other, lift each other, and help each other succeed. And I think I am supremely, supported by the organization. I would invite Shipra to share more on the people dimension.
No, thanks.
Yeah. uh, Sorry, Sumit, were you adding something?
No, I wanted to echo precisely. I think this is more of individual responsibility. And when you get an organization environment where you can really live your dreams, it comes all true. So thanks a lot, Sharmishtha.
Yeah, no, I mean, I will just add something here because obviously this topic is extremely passionate to us, and because we feel very proud about it, right? I personally feel very proud about just the sheer fact that how change it defines diversity and inclusion in the first place. Once the definition is right, rest everything falls into place, right? And for us, it's never been about chasing numbers. It's never been about reporting numbers. It's been about belongingness. It's been about do our women, when they are joining the workforce, or are diverse uh, uh, people joining the workforce, are they feeling that they can bring their true self to work, that they are not being judged, that there are no preconceived notions or perceptions, and that's been our yardstick of success, right? Not numbers. And that is why, I mean, I'm very glad Sumit and Sharmistha, both of you touched upon this, that yes, we do focus our energy on acquiring the right talent, but at the same time, then nurturing that talent, at the same time, developing them and then giving them an inclusive ecosystem, right? So maybe let me just talk about 2, 3 points over here. First and foremost, I feel so humbled and so proud to see that, at J&J Global, 1/3 of our executive committee is actually represented by women. What can be a better inspiration than that? And add to that a very, very interesting fact that globally our supply chain is headed by a very inspirational woman leader. Both of you know that, right? I mean, that is so inspiring. Every time I hear her talk about supply chain, it's like, a call out to all the women out there who are working in supply chain that you can do it. I mean, this field is no different than any other. Uh, Also, another unique point which I find about supply chain, particularly in J&J, and because I lead HR for that team, so I can speak very passionately about it, that, J&J is very uniquely placed that there's actually 3 companies into because of the kind of industries that we operate. Add to that the fact that within supply chain, you can actually do diverse roles. Sharmishta spoke about some of them. You can do logistics, you can do manufacturing, planning, project management, the list is big. And then the third layer, which is of international presence. Right? So if we look at all these 3 layers together, that we can actually work across the spectrum of supply chain roles within the 3 industries that we operate in, or regional and global presence, then it truly makes a very, very thriving space for anybody to participate in, and especially for women. Because you start your own career trajectory over here. There are no limitations to the kind of goals that you can do here. And so, I mean, just adding on to what both of you said, I also just want to feel extremely proud about the kind of strides that we are taking towards diversity, but more importantly, the kind of strides that we are taking towards inclusion. Is there anything else that both of you would like to add on this topic? Or then we can move to some interesting questions that are coming our way.
Take some questions, and probably that will help us address few of them as well.
Great. So I do see a question from Amanda. Thanks, Amanda, for writing that question. Wherein she does say that, we have seen the pandemic affecting women. So, do you think that the STEM fields, including manufacturing and supply chain, have been? I mean, I know both of you did touch upon that, but maybe Sumit, you can take that up.
Yeah, and just to set the records right, pandemic impacted men also. I think I've picked up so many household chores which I've not done ever in my life. So it has changed everyone. But yes, women were more uniquely placed because they had larger responsibility of family as well as professional thing. And I guess that is where supply chain, which I started with, has been impacted, but it has been impacted positively. It has been impacted to make a difference. It has been impacted because it has been challenged to bring out newness into the whole way we do and operate. As I said, supply chain is impacted because now it can actually be a differentiator for an organizational growth. If you have a very weak supply chain, and when I talk supply chain, it is right from the element, if you take out the commercial piece of it, as how do you sell, how do you market, how do you make finances around it, but rest all, if I take a supply chain, imagine if I can't get a product in time for my consumer, and if I have the great product and I can't deliver it in the way the consumers are looking for, I don't think any company will survive. So it did impact, and it impacted men and women together. It is a great opportunity, and that is where this whole power of thinking in a new way is very critical. And I think women are naturally blessed with the thinking power, which is immense. So yes, it's the best time for women in STEM area to make a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Shipra, if I can add to what Sumit was
Yes.
saying, uh, it's it's also a matter of perspective. Pandemic has been tough on all of us. It has brought about such widespread, I think, sadness and damage and changes, etc. I mean, we are seeing so many deaths world over, but it's also a matter of perception. If you shift towards a positive, crisis is an opportunity, like Sumit mentioned. And I see, especially for women, especially for people with diverse talents, this is a perfect opportunity to insert yourself where problems need innovative solutions. And across all industries, organizations are at that vulnerable point where they're looking for people with diverse abilities to come up and solve problems, and this entire situation of disruption in ways that the organizations or the existing management or existing solutioning could not. This is a time when you, women, or others with diverse abilities and talents should rise up and insert yourself in such positions and places where you can easily champion the problem solving and bring about winning strategies like the one Sumit earlier mentioned J&J is doing. So I think this is a perfect opportunity. While it is a crisis, it's a perfect opportunity for women to rise up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. No, thanks. Thanks for that build, Sharmishtha. Um, I do see a next question from Urvashi. Thanks, Urvashi, for the question. Um, and you did touch upon this, Sharmishtha, but maybe I'll still ask you to build on this. That how can women be inspired to build and advance their careers in STEM?
Thanks, Shipra. And Urushi, that's a beautiful question. It's, the short answer is inspiration is personal. I think what inspires you and me and others, it's very hard to have a single answer of what inspires. But if I have to take one thing, if you ask me, what would I want women to be inspired with? I think get inspired by your own personal journey. If you look at your own journey, and I'm sure, even if it is not just organizational merit and growth and acceleration, you are solving problems on a daily basis. I'm sure, like all of us are doing, we are addressing issues at home, we are addressing issues at our career, we are answering our own questions for most part, and at the same time leaning in and seeking sponsorship and inspiration and mentorship from people around. And these are the times where community matters a lot. Look around yourself, look at your story, then look around yourself and look for role models in areas that you think you would want to accelerate. Stories inspire the most. I think words on the wall, they don't as much as stories do. So look for those stories, make that connect. At J&J, we very simply say that the heart of all leadership imperatives that one should have is connect. Connect with people, hear their stories, learn from their mistakes, and get inspired by yourself.
Yeah, and rightly said, Sharmishtha. And I will add, I think, one thing which we also talk in J&J very clearly, that the biggest source of inspiration is having a very clear purpose in your life, right? If I give example of what purpose drive J&J people to be inspired, and men and women and all other equally, is we have a clear purpose. If you're talking about how do you bring the best of product to address a healthcare need of anyone in your family, around your friends and neighbor, that itself is a great purpose to remain inspired. And I think what Sharmishtha picked up are right thing to say, look for inspirational stories around, look for people who are doing it differently, look for things which are yet to be improved. And I think we have enough for all of us to stay inspired for I don't know how many centuries, and things will keep on happening and evolving. But carry a purpose in your life. If your purpose is clear and if you're driven by that purpose, I don't think you will ever miss that battery of inspiration for you to keep going.
Yeah, no doubt. And what I can definitely add over here is a concept on those employee resource groups that we have, right? Both Sumit, you and Sharmishtha are aware of that, and Sharmishtha did talk about that as well, which is uh, to find your own community, right? When we have today in supply chain R&D, a little few in data science than what I would like, but we have women and who are thriving in their careers, and we make them connect with each other. We make them be part of common purposeful groups and resource groups wherein stories can be shared, and role modeling can really help. So thanks for your answers as well, Smith and Shanish. For the next one, it is by Shriti Gore. Thanks. I actually want to pass this on to you, Sumit, rather than Sharmishta, which is to say that how do we change the perception around women's roles in plant roles, right? I mean, Sharmishta can go on and on. That's why I'm actually passing it on to you.
The best way is to experience it. Be in the plant, and you will completely change not only your own perception. I think, as what Sharmishtha said, gone are the days when we used to say, "Oh, manufacturing," which means when you come back home, you are greased and you have to just go and take a bath. That was a different manufacturing, and for sure that might be still existing in some part of the world. But when we talk out here and beyond the people part, which is very clear, it is people. But the whole landscape of manufacturing itself has changed. The way the digital thing is helping, there are digital manufacturing assets now. There are things which happens pretty remotely. There are robotics on the field. So whatever fun you want in any environment, I will say sometime later, maybe it is people will say non-make areas or non-plant areas are pretty boring because they are sitting just in front of a screen and doing some great work. But imagine that a plant area, a shop floor area, or these areas where a lot of new things are happening every day. You're interacting, you're having machines, you have these things around you to make it work. You will change the perception that yes, it's possible. And I think Sharmishtha did share, and she's standing strong. I think it has been a good long stint which she is doing in a remote place, Gaddi, Chandigarh. She moved from Mumbai. I mean, not to say that unless it was exciting, it was very hard to keep her there. So I don't see a challenge in terms of perception. It is you, when you join organizations. I mean, you have names. You all would have read. All many leading organizations had their CEOs as women, and they have come from manufacturing. Indra Nui and all, whichever way, if I remember, they have all done operations at one point of time in their life. So it's perception is just wash it off. It's very exciting. It's as exciting as anything else. R&D, planning, all these areas are now open for women, and you are the one who should change it. And we will facilitate, and we will all be very, very happy to have more and more of such diverse talent in all of our work area.
And I'll possibly, Sumit, add a layer to this, which is the other side of the stakeholders, which is other people who are working in plants, right? So a lot of times I get asked this question that how do we change their perception? So what you beautifully touched upon is the person's own perception, and I couldn't agree more that the best way to break it is to be. But how do we change the perception of the stakeholders who are in a plant environment that women actually can come here and do the roles? Is where the entire inclusion piece that we spoke about earlier, that if it is important for the organization will sit down and spend that effort in doing those manager sensitization sessions, in sensitizing the entire ecosystem that the plant roles can be done by anybody. It's not rocket science, it's nothing different. So, Sharmishtha, any further build on that from you?
No, I think that was absolutely perfect the way you and Sumit position it. Anybody who wants to do anything, and by anybody, I mean any gender, male, female, or however you identify yourself as. Anybody can do anything. And this sounds very cliched, but it's very true. And I think we have the generational benefit that organizations like J&J are opening up for all kinds of facilities that you would need individually, and also as whether it's a gender group or whether it's a different ability group, we have facilities available at all our sites to make sure that you succeed. Yeah. So it has never been a better time to try something new, and like Sumit said, make your dream come true.
Yeah. And I do see one more question, possibly that could be our last question. It's from Disha. Thanks, Disha. She's saying, my question is how to overcome the situation for women who were unfortunate to have been let on from companies where they were working during the pandemic.
Again, there's no perfect answer, so I can attempt and you guys can help. So first of all, I think overall as an industry, there had been pluses and minuses across industries, and the quantum and magnitude differs. But I always see, and don't assume that I'm a very optimistic person alone. I'm also pessimistic at heart. But what do I see is once loss is another's opportunity. So there are roles which has also seen a change, and people have moved on from one role and picked up larger roles. There are cases where I've seen that people, and good news is, and I was talking to one of our global HR leader in one function, and out of many things which we said, hey, how do we now move talent across, etc. Then he pointed out one thing which struck hard, is to say, it is now becoming easy to say, I actually don't need to move people all the way for a new role which I have, because now we have built a system where you can actually work from remote locations and things can happen. So this also provides a lot of opportunity for you to be more prepared and positioned for those roles which earlier were difficult, because if you can't move family bases, etc., people were not able to pick up those roles. Now, imagine that this could also open up a new way where roles can be done sitting in some other part of the world, because you are digitally well connected. You have a system which has been built around which works in the similar way. So I see this. Everything happens for good. For sure, there had been unfortunate incidents, and this is not again differentiated by any genders. As of now, people are getting impacted, but I'm very sure good set of skill sets are very valued in the industry, and new and newer opportunities are coming up where these things will become much more evident for people to pick up the roles of their choices without being concerned about which part of the world they belong to.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Sumit.
Yeah, if I can have a couple of builds there, Shipra.
Sure.
First of all, the question definitely is representative of a reality of any crisis. And I think organizations and industries and people across, when they deal with crisis, they respond differently. People being let go of their jobs is definitely very disruptive, and organizations who have been supportive of their people have been very cognizant and respectful and empathetic when it had come to this extreme step. And I say this in with all due respect to organizations which had to take that step. Thankfully we have dealt with this differently at J&J, but again, like I said, I'm respectful to organizations who had to take that step. Now, having said that, I think people who have experienced this is a significant change in their life. And when this happens, and again, I don't want to sound soft on this because it's a very harsh reality, but also it is time for them to dust and move on, like we say, right? I mean, there has to be a bias for action. So I'll quote a famous psychologist, Otto Scharmer, and he talks about a theory U. So theory U says you start with seeing what is happening, you experience something, and go into a deep U where you then deal with what does this mean for me, and then you come out of the view of the you, and then you take action. So I think in people who have experienced this harsh reality, they are in that deep you where they can experience a lot of negativity, but it's also the time to advance their talents by online learning programs, and all of those features and have also become available. So I think this is the time for them to develop more talent, accumulate more skills, and have those peer communities and lean on such support groups, and then come out of the U feeling more assertive, confident, and at the same time you are more skilled for the industry out there which is still dealing with these problems. And ultimately you will be in a place which is right fit for you in terms of a job and career. So I think, long story short, somebody who
Yeah.
let you go didn't deserve you. So move on.
No, and I will also just build on one thing, because both of you have been talking about how every crisis gives an opportunity as well. There is actually two great things I could say that has happened because of this crisis. One which you touched upon, Sumit, which is the world has become the oyster, right? So now remote working is so accessible that maybe a lot of employment opportunities which were not in our considerations that have now become in our consideration. That's one. And the second is employment models are changing. In any organization, uh, the full-time 8-hour worker concept is going to be diminishing now, and people are looking at freelancers, gig economies, a lot of different employment models. So there's definitely an opportunity for everyone out there, and we just wish everyone who's got impacted all the best. Uh, Possibly one last question, because I see that coming, and we talk about this very passionately at J&J, so why not pick that up? Which is, uh, how's J&J working towards building a resilient supply chain?
And you want an answer. So it will take years to do that. But I think the steps which I touched upon when we started, as one is this whole global, local supply chains, etc. A lot has been said. Is one way to make sure that you are developing more alternates, looking at much more business continuity plans, risk management strength in your organizations across all small boxes. To give examples, even for many of the raw materials, we have started looking at where we can also find an alternate formulation which can help us reduce the dependency on very unique raw materials. Then there are options where we can't substitute because quality is foremost and I can't let that go. that is where you're starting to develop more alternates. That can I buy it also from this geography, but also have it from eastern part of the world to also have that same material. So it's a lot of R&D and supply chain working together to make sure that we have robustness of continuity of our business plan. The second piece is the whole digital. That a lot of this thing we saw very clearly that manual things do have a challenge, because then you get really impaired if you are not able to get people back to site, and then nothing will happen. So digital is a big way of building that resiliency, that things are connected and things are more on their own. We can start. A lot of automations are happening across many of our manufacturing operations, that we want to automate things which can reduce labor per se on those particular aspect of work. Then if you're looking at the third piece, which was again on the capability, that resilience, the biggest ticket for anyone to survive will be how are your people. And if you have a strong set of people, I think you create a very resilient organization. And this whole culture building thing is where we are very, very committed to, not only now, but for many years, that how do you really bring out the best in people? How do you really give them that opportunity where they can bring out new solutions to the table? And I think that will remain to be very true for organizations who remain resilient, that their people are at their best and they can bring out the best out of any adversity which we are being thrown by things like this. Hopefully it never happens again, but yes, something or the other will happen. So these three, I will say, are where J&J is really absolutely working on, and we are accelerating everything possible in these areas.
Any further builds, Sharmishtha?
I think looking at the time, Shipra, Sumit already covered everything. For manufacturing, resilient manufacturing, I think I said that before. Two things are cornerstone of resilient manufacturing: people at the heart of everything. So resilient people, people who are spearheading with their capabilities and their talents, finding more opportunities. Because as I said before, in crisis, decision making happens at every level. So you need to have that resilient capability building. And the second is digitization and automation that actually breaks the barrier of dependency on manual activities. At the same time, deliver high quality product for our consumer and customers, which is our absolute purpose at J&J.
Yeah. And Shipra, I think you can close, but there is one question which I want to still address. I know we have 1 minute left or 2 minutes left, but in your opinion, what more can an organization do to effectively advance women to top leadership level in supply chain? Let me remind, in J&J, our supply chain chair is a woman. Our consumer health supply chain leader is a woman. Our R&D leadership has a woman. Our, as what Shipra covered, 1/3 of our executive board are women. So in a way, I will not say what organization can do more. What organization can continue is to continue this culture where diversity and inclusion is part of everything what you do. And more, we see again, you are the guys who are listening to this or probably will hear about it. You are the set of people who will make it happen. We need more and more people to come in this area. Join us in the areas where science, technology, engineering, maths, which were always considered to be domain of someone else, it's no longer the case. You come in, and that creates a good pipeline for us to take it to the leadership level. I think the culture is there. The precedence is absolutely right. And I think across all organizations, it is the same thing. So at J&J, we are very proud of it. And that is where we advocated without any hidden agenda to say diversity and inclusion will definitely make a big leap in terms of organizational growth.
Great. Thanks, Sumit. Thanks for taking that up towards the last minute. But with this, I think, we should close this webinar for today, but I cannot thank you enough for such an insightful conversation. And thanks to all the participants out there for being so engaged, for participating in this, for your questions. And the only thing I can say is, all the women out there, I mean, just spread your wings and fly. There's nothing stopping you. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Have
Thank
a good
you.
day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.